All right. Well, welcome to another episode of our guitar and bass
hmm
talk. Maybe we'll start out by vamping a little bit on the first four bars of Tree Stay. So we had a comment from one of our viewers that he suggested Triste, which is a great tune. John and I have played that. I think we played that at a Mexican
We
restaurant.
played it at a Mexican
I
restaurant.
believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes if I've got like a Mexican kind of restaurant, there are only so many tunes that I know that are actually like Mexican tunes, like
Right.
Besame Mucho. Anyway, we're gonna talk a little bit about a little piece by piece on some of the tunes, but what I want to focus on here is just maybe the sort of general impression of these first two changes.
hmm
So.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I'm generally kind of thinking about that, I'm hearing kind of a major minor
hmm
sort of movement. Would you say that that's your impression, or do you have a different take on?
Yeah, it's definitely has a minor feel
Mm-hmm.
going to that G flat, especially with the sharp 11 in there. It
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah, it definitely has a minor feel. But my brain being the way it is, I do also look at it the other way around.
Okay.
So it's almost like this phrase, I'm starting on the third of the G flat.
Mm. Okay.
So if I think of it that way, where it's not that the melody's starting on that B flat, it's I want that phrase to end on G flat. So
Mm.
everything is working that way.
Okay.
At least for a bass player, that can be really useful to think that way
Yeah.
instead of trying to go, okay, if that's the one, then okay, that's a flat five. Okay, that's really annoying. Then we're back to the one, and then there's a three. So if I think of it, just basically the third going to the one.
Okay. Okay.
At least in that phrase,
Yeah.
um, oddly makes more sense to me.
Okay.
I'm sure to
Cool.
Mr. Jobim that is not what he intended, but
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. So another moment that we have in the tune is this D major that comes up too, right? Let's hear that. Let's say we play B flat major. Just think about how that moves to D flat major or D major.
D major.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if we play, let's say through there, we hear we hear that these at least these root notes. If we take those collectively, we say B flat, D, and G flat, kind of forms an augmented triad, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I mean, even though D is only kind of a fleeting moment.
it really is.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a hint, and that's kind of a Jobim thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is when he writes something like this, where it's that minor feel, it's a sadder feel to it. He will throw in bright little chords,
Mm-hmm.
bright little major things that make you go,
Yeah.
"Oh, isn't that lovely? Oh, we're back. Okay."
Yeah.
It's he was brilliant at the emotion of chords and how
Yeah.
it goes through it too.
And they often connect very directly to the lyrics.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He is not. There's no ambiguity.
Right.
It's like these are the lyrics, these are the chords. This is how they work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much all the Jobim tunes are like that.
Yeah, they are. They are. Nice. So we're going to come back to this tune a little bit in a few moments, but we'll talk a little bit about you've been checking out. You mentioned the Metropole Orchestra.
More Metropole Orchestra. I went down the rabbit hole. I've always loved their stuff, but as I said earlier, there's certain players or groups when, no matter who's with them, it's going to be great because they get to pick who they work with.
Okay. Yeah.
Anthony Jackson, Steve Gadd, Richard T, guys like that. They don't have to take every gig. The Metropole's the same way. They can pick who they perform with or who gets to perform with them. So the list is incredible. And it's always amazing.
Uh-huh.
Always amazing. Just,
Yeah.
this is an orchestra that is so tight.
Uh-huh.
And they can play the rock stuff and pop stuff and jazz and whatever.
Yeah.
And very complex things. And that's what they do.
Right. And I would imagine that they enjoy that. I mean, it almost feels like sometimes it feels like there's a little bit of a separate world between classical musicians and maybe pop musicians or jazz musicians.
Yeah, a lot. I think that is actually getting smaller.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I was younger, when we were younger, there was a hard line.
Mm-hmm.
You played legit classical stuff or you played everything else.
Right.
Yeah, not so much anymore. I think that's dying off, literally,
Yeah.
as these players retire out. And we're getting younger, people who came up listening to Zeppelin and the Beatles and all that. That's part of their childhood.
Right.
Why not play it in orchestra? This is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And when kids are in orchestra, these days too, they're listening to pop music, but then they're going to their orchestra class and learning, classical repertoire. And
Yeah, which to be a rounded musician, I think, is vital.
yeah.
Just sitting down and playing the basic Bach pieces,
Mhm.
simplified Bach stuff that people have done.
Right.
It's so useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have this thing where once a year I sit down and play all the Bach cello sonata.
Mm-hmm.
It's exhausting and it's frustrating and it's worth it.
Yeah. I've played through the sonatas and partitas for, not everything, but for a lot of that material. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's incredibly logical.
Yeah.
You can you can almost hear Bach's brain organizing this as he went along
Mm-hmm.
Until he throws in something really amazing, something you just didn't expect at all. But it does get your kind of help line up your thinking,
Right.
harmonically and structurally.
Right.
If you understand that, then understanding Mozart becomes much easier. And if you got any handle on Mozart, you're good.
right. Yeah, that's great to analyze, and it works out range-wise on the guitar fairly well. You just play an octave lower than written, and I'm guessing that G would be the lowest
The lowest, yeah.
note.
Mhm.
So it works out pretty well on guitar as well.
Yeah, it's
Or on
great.
bass guitar.
Yeah, it is much easier on a 6-string, even a 5-string
Yeah.
if you have a high C on it.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it on 4-string, but you are spending a lot of time
You're
going.
moving a lot in this direction.
There's a lot of what I think of as vertical motion instead of horizontal motion across the neck.
Yeah.
But it's all good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's check out a little more of this tune. Let's talk about maybe a bass movement of it. Let's say we're just kind of going through. So we're talking about Triste again. So so we have B flat. We're heading to G flat. So I might play this voicing.
I like that.
Yeah, that's a cool one, right? So what I'm doing there is I'm really kind of thinking about you might say this is generally how I think about the chords, but think about like a first inversion of a G flat major 7,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm taking the root, replacing that with a 9, and taking the 5th and lowering it to get the sharp 11.
Oh, very
So
cool.
That's kind of logic behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I end up with that. And just a nice combination of tones, too, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, it really puts a kind of, because of the notes you've got close to each other, their interaction is different. It's
Mhm.
almost sparkly on top, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's a good
especially
way to
when
describe
when
it.
you got that underneath.
Yeah.
Because on a tune like this, as a bass player, you're playing a lot of root and fifth
Mm-hmm.
on the Jobim stuff
Yeah.
because you have to keep in your lane, even though I never do. Yeah, so you got, you're kind of root fifth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for a bass player, it's a matter of getting around
Mhm.
instead of really messing with the chordal stuff. I mean, that G
Yeah.
flat is a major, so that's where there's our B flat.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
you could do something like that, and it's finding these ways of, or you can
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
yeah, I like that. But it depends on what's happening in the song. If
Mhm.
you're behind a soloist, if you're behind somebody
Right.
singing lyrics, if it was just you and I playing it,
Mhm.
I would probably do that
Yeah.
to fill in harmonically a little more, and so you could open you up
Yeah.
to do what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So how about, so we have a little bit of a 2, 5, and C minor.
Right?
D minor, G7. Now on that C minor, would you typically, so oftentimes might do like a C B flat kind of motion to the D, to the A and the D, or kind of, you know what I mean, like that.
Yeah, because we got the A half diminished.
Mm-hmm. Right. So would,
So
on
we're-
that C
so-
minor, would you
So we're looking at that E flat
Mhm.
the whole time.
Okay, so you're thinking about that E flat.
I'm really
Okay.
thinking about that E flat.
Cool.
And again, if I'm thinking in thirds,
Mhm.
you know, like you say, if we've got C minor, and then I go,
Mhm.
so yeah, there's really interesting things going on,
Yeah.
because if we're thinking about the E flat, so there's the minor third for the C, there's the half diminished note. Now it's a minor third to the third of the D, if that
Mhm.
makes sense at all.
Okay.
So we got
Okay.
you know, so I can basically playing flat 5 to third,
Mhm.
1,
Okay.
and it's. But again, it depends on what's happening. But it is a more interesting
Yeah.
motion if I'm not playing very traditional bossa nova lines,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
or maybe something under a soloist.
Nice.
Because
Yeah.
one of my favorite things to do is to come drop if it's a third or flat third, I'll put that on the bottom. So I
Okay.
can go. You know, so I can go G, B flat, D. So I'm getting
Mhm.
flat third, 5, 1.
Yeah. That makes me think too about like the beginning. So if you had a B flat major 7, if we actually kept B flat in the root like you were saying before,
Yeah,
we could play that kind of voicing
it can
there.
stay there.
So that's almost like a first inversion, or I guess it is a first inversion of the G flat. Let's kind of drop 3 voicing here, and then you get hit back. Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, if you're thinking B flat through those first 6 bars, when you get to the D minor, that minor is an F,
Mm-hmm.
fifth of the B flat. So you're kind of in a really good place to say, because you. So if you'll play the D minor,
Yeah.
I can go to the F,
Mm-hmm.
and then lets me resolve the next chord to the G.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, so I'm hinting at things without playing the root note on 1,
Okay.
because unless I have to, that annoys me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's much more interesting things to do.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I don't think it was this tune, but maybe it was. But I was transcribing. So sometimes I'll transcribe a specific bass part that I like
Mhm.
for some of the videos that I make, and you know, finding similar things. You know, what are the bassist choices as far as the, you know, the root notes versus, you know, sometimes not playing
Right.
the root notes and stuff like that.
Yeah, and especially for a bass player, if you're in a band where you've got a really good piano player and a guitarist, which I really like because it gets chordally very thick, and that's a fun thing.
Yeah.
That really opens the bass player up.
Yeah.
Doing things like playing that F to G
Okay.
instead of having to go D minor G.
Okay.
I can do that. And then that gets us,
Yeah.
and it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just a straight 2/5,
Yeah.
which is pretty in its place,
Right.
it puts some motion.
Change it up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it adds some motion onto the thing.
Nice. So let's talk about albums.
Yeah.
You mentioned Dreambox last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I did get a chance to listen to quite a few tracks. Really enjoy it. I mean, it's not a surprise that I would enjoy it. And that's one of the first things really that kind of drew me to guitar was hearing a hollow body guitar. Even before thinking about jazz, I really like the sound of the hollow body guitar. Even some of the Beatles material, and then getting in the direction of listening to Joe Pass, and so I'm hearing that originally when I heard he was doing an album of himself playing pretty much exclusively, I thought, well, he's probably gonna do like steel string guitar and do something like that.
Yeah,
But,
or even nylons.
Yeah,
You know,
nylon string.
just-
But I'm hearing kind of a mixture of different guitars, right?
Yeah, there's very, very layered
Yeah.
stuff. It is almost trance-like in places
Mm-hmm.
because he's got layer after layer after layer, and they're coming in and out.
Yeah.
And some of it's big and obvious,
Mm-hmm.
but then if you listen in, some of it's not.
Yeah.
And his harmonic ideas
Yeah.
about how to stack chords
Yeah.
is just amazing.
Yeah, listening to the backgrounds and the harmony going on there, I was really taken by that. And then, listening to that, when I think about his like kind of maybe primary voice, is that hollow body electric guitar
Right.
sound. And so I was really taken by how that lead voice layered with some of those harmonies in the background.
Yeah,
Just really, really nice.
because the harmonic voices to me sound not hollow body.
Yeah. And I think it changes per track.
Yeah, it does. There's definitely there's an overall theme to the album, but there is a definite
Yeah.
song to song
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned Trance-like, because I was checking out even just some of the titles of the tunes. I'm not sure I'm going to get this name by name, but the clouds don't make the sky, or the clouds don't.
Oh,
Um,
I can't even think of it.
yeah.
This is brilliant on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll have to look this up. But
yeah.
put a link or put a comment below and give us the exact titles.
Yeah.
But there's another one that's like the waves are not the ocean.
Right.
The clouds don't determine the sky, or something along
Yeah.
those lines. So it's interesting to think about. Maybe sort of the first word that came to my mind was like Zen or meditation or something like that. Just looking at the titles.
Yeah, I mean, and it does feel in places like his earlier albums, what I always think of the very Midwestern albums,
Yeah.
where it's open. Even though there's harmonic density
Yeah.
happening, there is a breadth to the songs.
Right. Yeah, because there are definitely some kind of close, and again, I'm not giving exact voicings, but there are sort of characteristic moments that are kind of like that sort of pianistic sound where the notes are kind of close to one another.
Yeah.
And at times, anyway.
Yeah, at times. So if you go back to like Asphalt's Wichita,
Mm-hmm.
you get a lot of that
Yeah.
in there, and it's just this huge, wide
Right.
sound.
Yeah. Because overall, his sound, you can sit on a harmony for a period of time. That's where it kind of, I think, departs a little bit from jazz, earlier jazz, where you just have this like chord,
Right.
well, somewhat like Tree State, where you have these open moments where you could maybe sit and think terms of a mode or colors on a certain
Right.
harmony, something like that.
Yeah, you can think of harmonic colors. You can think of literal tonal colors, changing the tone of the guitar, moving your hand, doing things like that. And he's so good at that.
Yeah.
And I think the big difference is going from, like, say, with something like Tree Stay, great song with lyrics.
Mhm.
The song is there to support the poetry of the lyrics.
Yeah, they're very interconnected.
Yeah. With an album like this, no, there were no lyrics.
Right.
So yeah, so he can go, oh, that's a really pretty place to stop and look around
Yeah.
and just hang out for a bit.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of cool too about doing an album, you know, on his own, is he can just kind of layer some things and play it. I would like to know more about the process.
Yeah,
of that. How
I
to do
would
that.
too.
Yeah. But it's another interesting thing that I'm fairly confident about with Matheny is that I think he titles his tunes after he's written them.
I have heard that.
Have you heard that too?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm guessing he has something in mind musically, and then he says, well, maybe this title kind of fits that.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So definitely worth listening to.
yeah,
That's just a gorgeous album.
yeah. So another thing we were talking about as we were starting out today was mediants and chromatic mediants.
Mm-hmm.
When we have a tune like Tree Stay, if we have, let's say we have a B flat major 7, the mediant would be like a D minor, right? And then the sub mediant in the key of 2 flats would be the G minor, right? So if we had those, well, maybe we'll play a little bit on that. If you just give me a B flat or whatever other notes you want to play, and then I'm thinking here like D minor. And we can think about, you know, this sound is a very similar sound,
It is.
right? So if I were to stack, if you let, how about you stay on the B flat,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll play the D minor. So in a sense, I've even left B flat, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a B flat major 9 sort of sound. And then I could put a sharp 11 on that. Right, so that's kind of cool too. That's a cool sound. Now if I put G minor 7 way up here, and you're still playing B flat, right? Then it's really, in a sense, it's still B flat, and it's like a B flat 6.
Right. Yeah, you're playing with sort of the inner colors of the chord.
Yeah.
Where you can, because that's really pretty when you move it up like that.
Yeah.
That's,
So there we get into like maybe the idea of substitutions. I don't really tend to think of it that way, but I think that's a valid way to think about it. Do you think of these sort of chords as like substitutions or just like different colors, or do you think about that at all? I'm not sure.
when I do think about it,
Yeah.
because if you're in the heat of battle, it's like, what am I going to play here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If I have time or I'm really thinking about it, I don't think in terms of substitutions.
Right.
I think in terms of harmonic movement
Mhm.
and support.
Yeah.
That's, unless I'm doing a solo gig or it's like you and I are doing a duet gig or something where
Yeah.
we're splitting the duties here. I'm thinking very much in a support thing and how can I get from place to place that makes sense for the person in front, that
Right.
makes sense for the listener,
Right.
but maybe also surprises the listener.
Yeah.
Because if you don't surprise the listener, then everybody's bored and what's the point?
Yeah.
So I will look for cool pedal things, and because it works and it adds tension and it does things so I can,
Right.
because I'm always looking for, okay, build tension, release. This is what they teach you in composition class that I slept through. So I know guys like guitar players and piano players will think in terms of substitutions a lot.
Yeah.
I probably should more,
Mhm.
but I don't want to. I just, if I'm thinking, if I'm if I'm looking at things like a B flat major, thinking, what can I do with all this?
And that's really cool that you can do that on, having a 6-string. And those strings are so close together. I'm just
Yeah.
noticing that.
Yeah, they are really tight, and
Yeah.
I think every bass should be like this.
Yeah. So you can really play some chordal things.
Yeah, I'm not a slap player, so you could really.
Yeah. Nice. And that's one thing one of the gigs that we played with, we kind of had like a 70s-ish rock, but instrumental
Right.
jazz trio
Right.
going. And maybe we still do. We just have, well, with the pandemic and everything.
Pandemic really stomped on things.
Stomped on things. But I remember I brought a bass to the first one that we did,
Yeah.
and I think you looked at me like.
Okay.
But the one little kind of dream that I have is to play bass duos.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think if one person plays like a low enough sound and the other person plays high register enough, I think it has potential. I don't
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ornette Coleman did it in his band.
know. Mm-hmm.
Or in prime time, he had 2 bass players.
Yeah.
One playing low, one playing high.
Mhm.
It works beautifully.
Coltrane did that too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
For a
there's-
period of time.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys who've played with that idea.
Yeah.
Um, I've worked with bass players in the past. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. You just kind of have to work out where each of you is going to go,
Spaces,
and
yeah.
you're got to keep your ears wide open.
Yeah.
Because if you hear somebody starting to move up because it makes sense, then you got to stop or get out of the way or do
Right.
something.
So yeah, chromatic medians. So chromatic medians would be kind of like this tune. So you'd have B flat, and then you'd have, rather than G minor, you'd have like something like, right? So it's chromatic because it's not in the key. It's not in the key of 2 flats. So G flat, and then you'd have, let's say, B flat, and then later on in the tune, we get to this D major, D natural major. Yeah. So that's the basic idea of what
Yeah.
chromatic is.
Yeah, this Tree State's one of those songs where you really can sort of, looking at it and thinking about it now, you could really have fun with what I think of as harmonic width. It's harmonic
Okay.
spacing.
Okay.
But
Nice.
if you're going from like D to F, so that's the like a minor third. So if I'm going just that minor to major kind of thing,
Mhm. Yeah.
or is it going to be chromatic? So you could do
Nice. That's cool. Yeah.
works perfectly over D minor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got what I think of as a tighter width, so
Mhm.
that or I'm just, which is very wide.
Got it. Okay.
So
Nice.
depending on the song, again, in my fevered brain,
Mhm.
I do tend to think of expansion and contraction
Okay. Yeah.
harmonically through the song, because as you contract harmonically, it does tend to push things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like other players will start moving forward a
Mhm.
little more.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very subtle and,
Nice.
and kind of sneaky,
Yeah.
but it works.
Yeah, and the bass as a role, I mean, it's you're kind of like the sort of the boss in a sense, like, because you have a lot of power, but you're kind of a little bit not behind the scenes, but your role is not in the spotlight,
Right.
but yet you wield a lot of power.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as soon as the other players learn that, everything is fine.
Right. Yeah.
So that is how I look at a song like this. So we could have,
Mhm.
you could have very wide open
Yeah.
bass parts
Mhm.
playing with the harmony, or very tight harmonies,
Yeah.
depending on how you're moving around, and it can sort of lift the song and relax the song and
Yeah.
moving it forward. It puts harmonic tension and release and a harmonic and a rhythmic tension and release while being incredibly subtle.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
And that's fun.
Yeah. A little later on in the tune, we have the what you might call secondary dominant on the E going towards the 4 chord, which is a real common motion. So we have, let's say, the one. So in the B section, we have this F minor to the B flat 7, right? So we're kind of pulling towards. We're really pulling from at that moment the key of 3 flats, but then we go to the 4 chord, and then to a kind of a flat 7 on the B flat after the A flat. Yeah. So that's a real common progression that you see in really a ton of jazz tunes, right?
Yeah, and of course, the really nice thing is because we really got a lot of 2 flats, 2 5s going on there. Almost all 2/5.
Yeah.
There's variations in major or minor or whatever.
Yeah.
On a bass or a guitar, at least your lower 4 strings, tuned in fourths, that's really easy. Really.
Yeah.
So you,
Yeah.
So, now all of a sudden you're thinking about it's interesting because you're landing on a C, which is really the 9 or the 2, depending on how you feel like thinking about it, of the key you're in. It's really clever how he did that. He lands on the 2 because in the last little odd length section there, he gives you the 5. Yeah.
Yeah. And I oftentimes think of like a 2 chord that's dominant as sort of a little pause or a little break, where it's like, okay, we're getting close to home, but we're gonna just sit on that for a second, And I think, it's funny that this tune was suggested because one recording I really like of this is Joe Henderson, and that's who I modeled the Milestones recording after. Yeah, so. And I think at that moment he does like a little, he does that little thing. I think, if I remember correctly, which kind of gives you like a kind of a diminished 7 or flat 9,
flat 9 kind of thing.
On that C chord. So that's pretty cool. So let's see, what else are we talking about here? We've got I've got a comment. Subscriber here, Jason Keaton, says he's on vacation. He's creating his own guitar camp. So he's doing some instructional videos. Hopefully my channel's included. It sounds like it is.
Oh yeah. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Just make your own virtual instrument camp.
Instrument camp, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is great.
That's very hip. Now, and what I would recommend is pick another instrument and add those videos to your core instrument.
Okay.
So, if you're doing guitar camp, look at bass, look at Latin percussion,
Nice.
look at trombone. Pick something different to change your perspective.
Right. That's a great idea. Yeah. Because then you can also get a little insights if they talk about like timing things or how they interact or, with other instrumentalists, then it gives you an idea of what, if you go to play with a drummer or someone, then you could say, oh, well, that maybe I'm expected to like kind of do this thing.
Right.
I don't know. That's just a thought. But yeah, that's a great idea.
But understanding how other instruments play, it gives you a different point of view. And as you say, you get into, I don't know if you're going to play anything like a big band or kind of a large, maybe a 12-piece kind of thing, where you've got horns. As a guitarist and a bassist, you got to know how horns operate, at least in their heads, how they're going to play a figure, and how your timing has to be so that it makes sense out in the audience.
Right. Yeah, and then when I'm playing unison lines with usually it's sax players, but in a big band kind of setting, I'm kind of aware how they talk to each other and how they get on each other about their articulation. So um, I'm oftentimes trying to really phrase with them.
Yeah.
As far as how, so you might think about like the tonguing or,
Mhm.
and the picking, versus maybe slurring or something.
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
I do. I don't know how many lines I've had in unison with trombones.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that a lot of composers will do, trombones and bari sax
Okay.
and bass,
Yeah.
all playing a unison line.
Nice.
Bari sax can actually play very short attacks, very
Mhm.
short notes.
Yeah.
Trombones can play a very short attack, but no matter what, it's still a little slower. So it's closer
Mm-hmm.
to this. You got to kind of be aware. It's like, okay, that guy's
Yeah.
hitting the attack of the note. Here's the meat of the note.
Yeah.
How am I?
Yeah, because the Barry sax has that little growl, has that attack,
Yeah,
that little raspy sort of thing that happens.
yeah. And if the player has enough wind power,
Yeah.
they can really, really hit the front of that note.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where it's almost barking.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so as a bass player, I need to know he's going to behave like that. Trombone's going to behave like this
Mhm.
because it's the physics of their instrument.
Right.
Where do I need to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
And usually, what I do is I let the sax have sort of the attack of the note.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to play it with him, but I'm not really overly concerned with hitting the attack that hard
Yeah.
because I know that there's an instrument there that can really nail it.
Okay. So how do you adjust your attack? Is it like less
Well, I won't dig as hard,
dig as hard? Okay.
because if I, if I'm playing here or nice round sound, if I move back
Yeah.
here, right, it's tighter,
Right. Right.
but that's
It's gonna be
close.
softer, less.
Yeah, this is closer
Attack.
to a trombone kind of attack instead
Nice.
of
Yeah.
I can
There's that little work to it. Yeah. Okay.
or I can
Right. And like Jaco Pastorius, if you watch him and listen to him, he's got maybe three basic
Mhm.
areas that he plays on for changing that
exactly.
sort of sound.
Yeah, this for a bass player, especially a fretless player, but any bass player, this is more important than anything. Your right hand,
Uh-huh.
because I can't,
Right.
it's a whole different instrument.
Yeah.
I didn't change the pressure I was using. It's just the location of the hand,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Nice. Nice. Let's see. What else were we talking about? We had gear. We were talking about Peterson.
Peterson tuners.
Tuners.
Well, that's what we use.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny. I have their tuner apps on my phone
Mm-hmm.
and multiple iPads
Yeah.
and my laptop, and then the Strobosomp HD
Yeah.
all the time because it works and it accurately tunes the low B string.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
The B, it doesn't freak out about B and E
Mhm.
like a lot of tuners do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been using this clip-on Peterson tuner, and I find it really works well. And are they all strobing tuners?
Mhm.
Every one of, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about getting a desktop here for just in the studio
Mm-hmm.
because they have a desktop version, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Peterson kind of it's Peterson and Kahn did the strobe tuners.
Mhm.
If you grew up going into band class in the 70s and 80s or 60s, or there was either a Kahn or a Peterson strobe tuner there.
Uh-huh.
If you look at the piano tuners who use strobe tuners, Peterson makes one that it's a chromatic strobe tuner. And it's
Okay,
got all
yeah.
these little strobes
Yeah.
on it because they're just accurate.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think the strobe tuner, it makes a lot of sense because you're never really going to be in tune precisely,
Right.
but the strobe you'll start to see it speed up in one direction or speed up in the other direction. So you have found that kind of equilibrium or something that's that's going to be very accurate.
Right.
But you know, some of those with the like the snark tuners and things, not to diss on those.
They work fine.
They work fine, but yeah, it's not going to quite dial in
No,
quite as close. I
no,
think.
the rate that they pick up the note is odd.
Mm.
So it seems to be slower.
Yeah.
And there is a thing where the attack of the note is sharper than the core of the note.
Right.
Once the string
Really
settles a little bit.
Mhm.
So the trick is to find that magic spot in between.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you do this, but I will check up the neck.
Yeah.
Even though I obsess over my setups, and I actually do the trick where the low strings I will set like 1 or 2 cents flat
Mm-hmm. Okay.
because it's going to go sharp as I go up, and that
right.
compensates for that.
Yeah, compensates.
But yeah, it's worth, you know, so you can have a wonderfully perfect in tune solid strobe on the E, and then you
Yeah.
play the F and it just falls apart. So then you got to sort that out.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
yeah.
Cool. So this will mention too. We have a member area here on the YouTube channel. John makes cables and does repairs. And if you have any trouble finding John, just send a comment. Put a comment in the in this video.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from y'all.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we talked about a bunch of stuff, and thanks for writing in, folks. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so we'll be back with more videos and stuff. This has been really a great hang.
Yeah.
And I think we'll work in more playing. Last time we didn't really play, but today we played a little bit.
Right.
I think that was fun.
Yeah, we'll sneak in a little more next time.
Yeah, sounds cool. All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks. See y'all.